There has been a lot of discussion. I know I've made videos on it on the roles in marriage. And I know I get a lot of pushback from not my Catholic women so much as people who are not yet there in their faith. Is this conversation that men are, in fact, the head of the household? Look, I'm 59 years old. I grew up in the 80s, and that was always told to us be independent. You can do anything a boy can do or a man can do. And we set out to prove that. I was never really a feminist, but I was just like, I can do that. And so, this idea that my husband is the head of me, and I'm like, he's not the head of me. We're equals. Well, I will tell you, for as many years as I had that belief, we had a lot of problems in our marriage. And among other things, when I finally realized that we were out of God's order, uh, when we realized that, the marriage finally started getting good. It wasn't just that in and of itself, but it was my understanding that God set my husband ahead of me, whether I like it or not. So if there was a decision, if there was a conversation, if there was anything where he gave his input and I gave mine and a decision had to be made, I'd have to go, okay, it's on you. And that was very hard. And it's very hard for many of my clients and the women I talk to, especially strong type A alpha females like me, where we're like, well, I'm a strong woman. Does that mean I have to weaken myself so that my husband can lead me? Because he's just not strong enough. And there's many, many passive men out there I talk to too, that are like, yeah, they surrender their headship to their wives. So no, I have to tell you, it does not mean that you have to become different than you are, passive or weak or anything. But here's what it means. In a good relationship, women have to surrender much in their marriage, but so do men. That's why God gave us the ability to love very easily, but to respect his authority that's not something that comes easily to us. But for men, it's the other way around. They have no problem respecting, but they have a hard time loving. So God says, I want you to focus on love. And I know many of you have read the book Love and Respect, and it talks about that. And I'm not going to talk about that at this moment, but he has to surrender too. But the point of this video is this. Just because you're not in a position of power does not mean that you're not leading. So said in the more affirmative, you don't have to be in a formal position of power to lead. Ladies, you can lead your husbands. You just can't do it formally. I've seen this happen in the military. I've seen stories where captains and colonels and generals will take information from someone very low ranking who they trust and go, okay, we're going to go with that. Now, that person still had the decision-making power, the general, the admiral, but they followed the advice of the lower ranking person. Now, remember, none of this has to do with value. We're all equal value in our marriage. We have equal importance. That's one of the things that Satan tries to get us with. The culture tries to say, oh, those Christians are so ridiculous. A woman has to be barefoot and pregnant and bowing down to him. It's ridiculous. But what it does say, the movie, I think about the movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And the scene where Tula goes to her mother because she wants to go to college. And her mother says, let's see what your father says. And she's like, why do I need Dad's opinion? Why can't you make that decision? Why does he? And she's like, because he's the head of the household. She goes, why does Daddy get to be the head of the household? Why do men? And her mama looked at her and said, Tula, Tula, the man may be the head, but the woman is the neck. And it was fantastic. It was a great example of what we're talking about. Because you can, and you often do, lead your husband if you're a good neck. See, it's not that he gets all the say-so. It's that if you're kind and loving, and if you know how to say things in just the right way, your husband will want to do what you advise often. But if you're nasty or you're like, whatever, here's what I'm going to do. You do what you always want to do what you want anyway. Well, who would want to follow that? And then it just starts defensiveness and it starts sarcasm, and it starts a power struggle. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to do what I want anyway. But if you're like, you know what, I always trusted you. I know you can do this. I know how much you love our family and you want to do what's right. So I'm going to put this out there because I really feel strongly about this. That will get him to really consider more what you are saying. I can't ever come up with the greatest examples while I'm doing this, but there are ways where you are able to put out information and constantly get your husband to see what he does not yet see. And when he sees that, and if in fact it is good, he will often choose to go in the direction that you pointed out. That's a leader. See, a leader is anyone who has people following him or her. You're a leader if you have children following you. You're a leader if you're a teacher. So even though you may not have the formal title of leader, doesn't mean you can't lead your spouse in the direction he should go. And so, ladies, specifically, the one thing I hear from you often is, my husband, I need to get him to heaven and he's got to do this, but I can't. He's telling me not to go to church. And if he doesn't go to, and then they start fights about it. You have to go to church. You have to go to confession, whatever. That's not leading your husband if you're trying to jam it down his throat. But if you say, you know what, honey, I know you'll make the right decision. You just keep doing what you need to do and God will advise you. And then you go to church by yourself. But you look so loving and so you're not fighting and you're not. Makes him ponder you. So don't make yourself adversarial. Make yourself attractive. And where you lead, if you lead them in the way of truth, which is Christ, they will often follow. I'd love to hear your comments. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching Breakfast with Bacon. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.